you lock it. You have no other choice but to get these deals closed.
You went from motivated seller to a 7-figure wholesaler.
And now I own an 8-figure real estate portfolio as well when I almost had to declare bankruptcy on my second project. Right now we're averaging right around 400, touching 500K a month consistently. The goal is to continue scaling and get to $1 million a month is the next, 24 months. I'm an ad junkie, so I live and breathe Google ads, Facebook ads, all that kind of stuff. I've been just doing it for so many years now. And as you do it that long, you just start learning the things that work. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about, especially Google ads, is the system changes frequently.
Welcome back to another episode here in the REIpreneurs podcast, where I only invite diamond type of real estate entrepreneurs, where people that actually have achieved the thing that you're trying to do here, which is scaling a real estate business or wholesaling business or a flipping business. And you know that there's many things in real estate you can do and make money with. I brought many different guests in the past, like Nick Perry or Brent Daniels or Tiffany High, and all these people have scaled their business in incredible ways. They also teach it in incredible ways. They do the doing. And then today I have a special guest. He is from Florida, very, very close to Miami. Well, do you drive here?
Yeah, I drove down.
You drove. All right. So he's in St. Pete. And I met this guy inside of a mastermind called 8-figure or 7-figure cartel from Nick Perry. But it seems like he's doing pretty good. Like pretty impressive. Your numbers are about 400K months, right?
Yep.
That's a lot of deals per month, per year. How many deals is that per year?
I don't know the exact deal number off the top of my head, but right now we're averaging right around 400, touching 500K a month consistently. The goal is to continue scaling and get to $1 million a month is the next, 24 month trajectory we're looking at.
Awesome. So I usually bring people that are already have scaled their business, and some of them they move to or they started other verticals. You're doing real estate just now, only real estate currently. You're still working on your brand. You started working on your brand recently, but real estate is everything you do today.
Yeah, I am a real estate junkie through and through. So I have my wholesaling business, which we've been scaling for the last few years. It essentially operates without me at this point. We still are somewhat involved in management, but the operation side is fully scaled. And then I take all the profits and I buy rental properties. So I own, everything from single family homes up to like small to mid-size apartment buildings. So, I own about 70 doors, and that is what I've done the last, few years, and going to continue keeping the foot on the gas on growing the wholesale business. And, we'll see what the future has in store.
That's good, man. So I also noticed a few things. Just looking at your social media, we're kind of getting to know each other a little bit. You're huge, first of all. I didn't know you were so big. You're very tall. So
yeah, I walked in, you're like, I didn't know you're that big. I didn't realize much.
Yeah. Kind of like whenever you meet someone in Zoom, but then all of a sudden they're either tiny, super tiny, or super small, super big. So you've been in the game for a few years now, and you have an office. It's not like you do this remote or the virtual thing. You fully have staff in your office. How many people do you have?
We have probably about 20 to 22 people right now.
20 to 22 people.
Yeah.
All right. So where were you a year ago? Were you this size or?
So we were slightly smaller. We had the office, similar team size, maybe 4 or 5 less. The last 12 months, we have been correcting a lot of things in the business before we kind of go for our next growth push.
Yeah.
We made a big switch where a lot of wholesalers keep everyone 1099. We are making a switch over to W-2, just trying to really stabilize and professionalize the business before we kind of put the foot on the gas and really try and scale. So we haven't really been trying to scale in terms of number of people. Now, I think, young entrepreneurs and especially people who are kind of getting into the next phase where they're scaling up their business, you can only do 2 things in business. You can either do more, which means adding more people and physically growing the operation, or you do better, right? You say, I'm not going to grow anymore in terms of people, but I'm going to master the operation I have right now. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, is really trying to perfect this team size before we go to the next level with the business.
That's good. So, tell me a little bit more about how your organization is structured to be able to make over 400K a month.
Sure. So all a real estate wholesaling businesses at scale is you have a system that generates leads, and then you have salespeople that convert those leads, and you have a second sales team that then sells those leads to investors. And so the business is broken up that way. I still run all of our marketing. That's kind of like my specialty. We do a lot higher ROAS than a lot of other people in the industry. I think partially just because I give the ads a lot more attention. And, I've been running ads for, 4 or 5 years now for my business. We'll spend, this year we'll probably, spend $1 million just in Google ads. And so that's the first bucket. So that bucket generates us leads, right? And then we have a sales team, which we actually have 2 acquisition sales teams, right? Each have a sales team lead. And then there's, 3 to 5, closers, acquisition reps that work on that team. Then there's the disposition team, which is a couple more sales reps with a director of dispo. And then on that team as well, we have 2 transaction coordinators that basically support the transaction, helping it get it across the finish line. And that's really what the office looks like right now.
So you basically brought almost everything in-house.
We are 100% in-house. We have nothing out of house.
Okay, that's incredible to see. You told me you were not a tech guy, but you said you're managing and you're putting a lot of attention with your ads.
Maybe I shouldn't have said I'm not a social media guy yet. And so I don't know shit about that world. That world is very new to me. I just started kind of posting content and doing all of that. On the ad side, yeah, I'm an ad junkie. So I live and breathe Google ads, Facebook ads, all that kind of stuff. And so I've been just doing it for so many years now. And kind of like you, as you do it that long, you just start learning the things that work. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about especially Google ads is the system changes frequently. And so what happens is people will try and get into Google ads and they won't go into it trying to master it. They'll learn one course, they set up a campaign, it works for like a month and then it breaks, right? Because the Google algorithm has then changed. And so I think the people who do well in the ad space are the ones who are staying on top of the changing environment within the ad space.
So how are currently your Google ads different from when you started?
Oh man, I mean, they're vastly different. Completely different ad copy, completely different campaign structure. The way we target keywords are different. I mean, I started running ads, almost 4 years ago now. And so Google was vastly different at that time.
Yeah. And did you end up taking courses or like copy paste a blueprint?
So the way I learned ads, I took probably 5 or 6 different courses right when I got started. And I basically combined all of the knowledge from all these different courses and started just rapidly testing things. I didn't want to just copy and paste what I thought. What I would do is, I would learn from someone, I'd copy and paste, and then I would iterate, right? And then I would combine, okay, I learned a little bit of a new nugget here. Let me try applying this to the campaign structure. And so the way I learned Google Ads was essentially 5, 6 different courses, and I could, probably like $250,000 worth of spend that I burned, right? And so I usually tell people, you don't want to learn Google Ads. Like if you don't have a large sum of cash, like I'm talking a few $100,000, I wouldn't recommend trying to run Google Ads yourself. Now, if you do and you want to become an expert at it, become an expert. But where I see people struggle is they treat Google Ads like they don't have to be amazing at it, right? They'll be like, oh, I'll just take this course and plug and play this campaign. You're going to get absolutely cooked by people like me and you, right? Who live and breathe this stuff all day. Our campaigns are always going to perform better because we have become dedicated and become obsessed with running those kind of ads. And so for people who want to get into Google Ads, I would say 1, hire a really good company to run it in the beginning, but don't get started unless you have 30, 35K on the sidelines. I see people try and get into PPC and they're like, let me run a 3K a month budget. You will just waste money. You will just blow your money. And so that is a big piece of advice I kind of give to people who want to get into the PPC space.
Yeah. All right. So explain to me a little bit about your current business model. Are you doing mostly Florida, St. Pete, or are you doing nationwide?
Yeah. So we have closed in 32 states. Now probably 80-90% of our revenue is like 10, 12 states. Basically Florida, up the coastline to the Northeast, add in Texas and California. And like those 10, 12 states are where we do almost all of our revenue. We do tons of deals though in random ass places. We do not avoid rural. We just have systems and processes to deal with different markets, right? Like you can't treat a lead in, central rural Florida as you would in Miami or Tampa, Florida, right? Though you have to price them vastly different. You have to treat the exit strategy differently. And so we target that. Now we do traditional assignment cash deals, and we do novations. We stopped doing creative deals. And that is kind of how our business is structured right now.
I see a lot of newbies struggling with nationwide because they can't dispo deals. It's just a struggle.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh god, there's 5 contracts in 2 months. I'm so pumped, all nationally, but all of them fell through except for one.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Where I've seen where 30% of the contracts actually go through, as low as that.
Yeah, that's very bad.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Yeah.
But it's common to see that on nationwide. So how can someone that is getting into nationwide?
So what you just described could be a disposition problem. It very well could be an underwriting problem, right? They very well could just be underwriting the deals incorrectly. They may not be adjusting for what I said. If you get a deal in some rural market, you can't price at the same way you're pricing a deal in a larger metro. And so people often think they have a disposition problem, which sometimes they do, but a lot of times they're just underwriting the deals wrong.
Yeah.
Now, once you fix the underwriting problem, you then have to put a lot of effort into a good disposition system. People think you just get investor lift or you get something like that and you just move the deals. That is not how it works. Now, there's plenty of great tools out there to help a good disposition team, but those don't solve it for you, right? You need to have SOPs, standard operating procedures, about how to move deals in different markets, right? And so we have a very built out system and process where it's like, hey, if a deal is in this kind of market, here are the exact steps you follow.
Yeah. So underwriting, so basically doing the numbers, being able to be great with, based on location, based on the property types, based on everything that it has to do with that specific market, being able to adapt quickly. How do you do it whenever there's so many different markets out there?
So interestingly, your statement is true in the sense that there's different markets, but there's only a few different kinds of markets, right? Like you have major metros, and then you have, suburbs outside of metros, and then you have rural areas.
Yes.
There's really only 3 or 4 category types of the area something can be in, right? Like if you get a deal in Miami versus Tampa metro, while the price value of what's on Zillow may be different, the way you comp it is identical, right? You know an investor in a major metro will take a 15 to 20% profit on their flip, right? An investor in a rural market might have to make 40, 50% on their money because it's rural market and because it's going to sit longer. And so I think people get overwhelmed being like, how can I know all these different markets? There's only 3 or 4 things you have to learn. You have to learn how to comp in major metros. You have to learn how to comp in suburbs, and you have to learn how to comp rural shit. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse, but
That's fine.
And you have to learn how to comp rural stuff.
This is that the camera literally just did some fireworks. I don't know why.
Hell yeah. I'm dropping fire.
You're fucking dropping fire.
But yeah, so I think people overcomplicate. I think in business in general, people like to overcomplicate things because they use it as a crutch of why they're not successful or why they're not succeeding. Most stuff is really easy. And it really just comes down to sitting down and writing out these different processes. Write out your SOPs. Okay, how are we going to handle deals in rural markets? And I think one thing that a lot of, I'll say like rookie wholesalers don't do is they cancel deals and they never start documenting why deals are canceling. Every single month, my team and I, we go through all the files we canceled. Hey, what was the problem here? Was it an underwriting problem? Was there a title issue problem? Were we unable to sell it, but we thought it was priced correctly? Was there something not properly explained to the seller? And so people never audit that stuff. And all you do is you start auditing your cancellations and then you figure out where you need to work on.
So basically what you're telling me is that you've been able to create a framework. Okay, the problem is that it's not necessarily dispo, but there is a framework to your underwriting process and there is a framework to your disposition. there's three different markets that you can create SOPs and playbooks to run with. And I'm pretty sure that also it also might depend whether you're in the East Coast all the way to the West Coast or
Interestingly, like if you get a deal, let's say like Denver,
Mhm.
right? Not on a coast, but still a major metro. Investors in that metro are going to, the way you have to think about wholesaling, you have to think, what is the investor who I'm selling to? How much money do they need to make? Investors in major metros, whether it's Denver, Los Angeles, California, or Miami, they actually all want the same level of profit.
Yeah.
Now, you'd be like, well, the house prices are different. Yes, that's not what I'm talking about. The house prices are different on Zillow, but your formula for underwriting is the same, right? And so it really doesn't matter where they are. All that matters, hey, is this a big metro, right? And we could get nuanced. Obviously, there's metros that are better than others, right? Like I can lock up a deal in Miami that is way tighter. An investor's going to make way thinner margins than, say, Jacksonville, Florida, right? And so you can get nuanced. Obviously, there's nuance to this, but in general, large metros, investors operate the same way. Suburbs, investors operate the same way. Rural investors operate the same way. And so you should be doing nothing in your business unless it's documented.
Yeah.
Right? There should be nothing you do as an entrepreneur that doesn't be like, hey, we follow this exact process when this happens.
That's huge, man. I see your passion about this.
Here's the thing. Like, I sound passionate about it. I think I sound that way just because I know it's so crucial. It sucks sitting down and writing an SOP all day. Like, it's boring as shit. You sit down, you're not into it. But here's the thing. That is what makes you money. Doing the boring shit is what makes you a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
Doing the boring shit is what allows me to make a shit ton of money when I'm not there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the important thing. I can sit on this podcast and still have deals closing all day. Right? Deals being put under contract, deals being sold and assigned, deals closing.
But I actually see it another way, actually. The perspective is like, okay, this is the boring shit, but I feel excited when I'm going to go teach someone, and that person is going to do it 100 times. And probably is going to perfect it and do it, at some point even do it better than the first time that I showed it, because they did it so much, so many times, and they just focus on that thing, right?
Yeah.
When I started my business, I forgot who is the one that gave me the tips, but I always did different playbooks on my engineering, but I never had videos. When I started doing SOPs, I started doing Loom videos.
Oh, Loom's amazing.
And then just kind of going over step by step, showing exactly what they needed to do. Literally just to send a message.
Yeah.
Because we used to acquire a lot of clients by going to social media, checking who might be a good qualified person based on, judging social media, reaching out to as many people as we can from those that look like a good one, sending them a message, interacting, all that stuff. And it would have been so hard if I just write it down if I can't show it.
Yeah.
And now, Loom, Zoom, everything you can do, you can not only show it in video, but you can also translate it. You can transcribe it. And then with the transcription, you can also now put it into like some sort of AI technology and like organize it, structure it even better.
Loom is amazing. And I think for anyone who watches this, who is an aspiring, entrepreneur, or maybe you're doing a few deals a month, I think what really increases your rate of scalability is even when you're by yourself, start documenting things. What often happens is someone is flying by the seat of their pants. Maybe they close 1, 2, maybe 3 deals a month, right? They're making a little bit of money, but they're not actually creating the business to be able to scale. They're just doing all of this. Then they hire someone, the person comes on, and then they start trying to write all the SOPs like while they're training this person. That is a disaster.
Yeah.
You're much better off while you're by yourself being like, hey, I know I have no one else to teach this SOP to yet, but I'm going to start following an SOP to make it perfect. That way, when I go to scale, it's that much better and easier to grow the business.
Yes. Do you always have a visual way of showing people? So, because I know people learn different ways, but whenever you create some sort of playbook or you have to teach someone something, I'm pretty sure you already have a team, so they teach their stuff, themselves stuff, and they create SOPs. But when you were doing that part and teaching other leaders or teaching, your founding team members, was it always a visual thing, or you also just only?
I think it depends on what they're learning. Like for something where like comping, for example, comping, you need to have pictures and screenshots of how you actually look at Zillow and where, don't cross certain main roads and things like that. And so I think it depends on the situation. I think as I'm listening to you, I think one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs miss is then they'll start writing these SOPs and they think it is an end all be all problem solver. You have to have an SOP and then still teach them, right? You use it as a resource and a thing to look back on. You don't just give them the SOP and then say, go do this. Yeah. You say, hey, this is how you train someone. Give them the SOP. Hey, review this. I'm going to walk you through it in an hour. Review this SOP for the next hour. I'm going to then train you on it in an hour, and then we're going to practice the hour after that. So they read it themselves. Then you come in, you show them exactly how to do it, following the SOP yourself, and then be like, hey, why don't you practice for a little bit? And then you test them on it, right? And then you might have to give some coaching here and there. Hey, you missed this step. Hey, you missed this step. Hey, go review the SOP for another hour, right? Go try and do this on your own and show me what you think the answer is, right? And then you coach them. And so it's not just give the SOP to someone and the team's trained. There's still a lot of hands-on work you need to do to have a team that's effective and trained up.
Yeah. So how do you, I don't know, have you tried remote versus office?
So we were remote in the beginning when we were building the business. Yeah. And so I am a big proponent of in-person. I think there's a world where maybe we do try some level of remote in the future. I don't know. I definitely always want to have a large office presence. I think it's better for the culture. I think it's better for team development. The other thing, you see a lot of wholesalers get to 10, 30K a month, right? Like that kind of range. There's, a few who kind of scale up to multi 6 figures a month in terms of revenue. And a lot of what that is building up really good team members who then can be leaders. I think that's much harder to do virtually, right? Can you run a small little sales team virtual? Yes. But I think it's very hard to then take one of those people and then have them run the sales team virtually. I think it's much easier to build up and invest in talent in an office. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in trying to make as much money tomorrow instead of being like, I want this business to be around for a decade, right? Or longer. And a lot of times the answer of what makes the business the strongest for a decade is not what makes the most amount of money tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Or today.
Exactly.
In the short term.
In the short term. And so you see people rushing things and they'll do things to save and make money today, but it's not actually strengthening the business for the long run.
Yeah. No, I've been running a business remotely. It requires a lot of different practices or a lot different systems than a regular office. Mm-hmm. Well, office work has existed for centuries. Yeah. And it's already proven to work. Mm-hmm. What's not 100% proven by everyone is the remote setting. Totally. So it has different nuances because, tracking is very important in your company. Yeah. And you can visually track people when you're in an office. Totally. It's much easier.
I also think there's businesses that are easier to be ran remote than others. Right. I think there are businesses that, benefit more from being in office than others. Yeah. And so I think it really depends for your agency-esque business. I think that is inherently an easier business to run as it is less. Sales is still important, but you have a different kind of fulfillment, right? Like your media buyers are a role that are much easier to judge output based on quality of work than, say, sales team productivity. Yeah. Right. There's also far less synergies that two media buyers working together get from being in the office than saying have a team of really good salespeople together that then feed off their energy. Yeah. Right. Like sales teams to me are the energy and motivation is so crucial in a sales team. I think it just depends on your kind of, business model.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. So, how many people do you really think are actually crushing it in wholesaling? Because I see a lot of gurus really not doing the business anymore. Or they get to 100K a month and then just I become a coach.
Yeah, there's a few good coaches who actually run the business they say they do. Nick Perry's one of them. I'll give him a shout out. That's my boy. He actually runs a real wholesale business. Yeah. Now there's a lot of fucking other idiots out there and I hope they see this and comment and try and talk shit to me because I will literally cook them so fast. There are idiots out there teaching it, which is really unethical to me. And so a lot of my content I'm putting out, I'm not selling a course. I'm never going to sell a course. I got nothing to do in that space on wholesaling. I just want to put out free content because there's so many fraudsters taking money from people, which really pisses me off, especially in this business model. For everyone listening, wholesaling, there is a lot of legal ramifications around what we're doing, right? Like you have to be careful and do things right. You can do things that are against the law in wholesaling and people don't even realize they're doing it. And so that's where I get pissed off with some of these fake gurus. So Nick and Brandon, those two dudes, amazing guys. Like anyone who wants to get into wholesaling, those are your guys who you should, talk with. A lot of the other people, frauds and fakes, I don't even want to speak about them. Now there's a group of, I'm not sure the exact number of people doing doing millions a year in revenue. I know a few of them and you've had a few on your show, Ben's a great dude. He's a savage in the industry. And so there's definitely, just like any business, and especially within these guru-y spaces, kind of like real estate agents, there are hundreds, thousands of wholesalers. 1% of them make all of the money, right? There's a top percent of the wholesale industry that literally make all of the money.
Yeah.
And then everyone else makes virtually no money. It's a business that has very low barriers to entry. But here's the thing, I don't think people realize you have to do things the right way. You have to do things ethically, right? If you're not going to run the business and get reviews and be on the BBB and actually try and do things and treat people the right way in this space, you're not going to last because it's going to be too exhausting for you. And I see people in the wholesale business, one thing we do very differently than a lot of wholesalers is we are just transparent with sellers, right? We honor our word, we honor the contracts. And in the event we do have to cancel contracts, we do it as soon as humanly possible and try and provide as much value to them. Hey, can we connect you with an agent? Hey, this deal's not going to work out for us. If we know a deal's not going to work, we never wait till the closing table.
Yeah.
There's wholesalers out there that will wait till the closing day and then be like, we can't close. That is super unethical, right? You have to lead with transparency. And here's the thing, when you do that, you actually get good reviews. People are actually happy to work with the business. And we provide an essential service, right? I think people misunderstand wholesaling. If someone is about to be auctioned off in 3 weeks, their credit is about to be destroyed. They'll never be able to get another home loan again. They'll never be able to get an auto loan that's below 25% APR. They'll never be able to get a credit card, right? And so then they call someone like me and we can get this deal closed out where their credit is instantly fixed, because what people don't realize, if you're facing foreclosure and we pay off the loan at closing, it shows up on your credit report that you paid off the entire mortgage. You got out from under the problem. But what is unethical is when wholesalers will put a deal under contract, do not have the resources to sell on it or close on it, and then cancel the day before. That is super messed up and it gives our industry a terrible, terrible name. And so there's a handful of people who run this business the right way, right? And they make all the money.
Yeah. And but also think about it in the shoes of the seller. I don't know if you ever gone through debt. I've gone through a lot of debt, and especially where I had to get the money out of somewhere real fast, and it's a very stressful situation.
My God, bro, it's awful. I posted this on my social media. The reason I first got into this business was I was 23. I had a great job right out of college working on Wall Street. I hated it. I was really depressed. It was not a good job for me. It was just, I didn't fit in, and I had bought my second investment property. When I say a project, it could not have been more work. This house had been vacant for 10 years, wood frame in Florida, which if you buy in Florida, you know how much of a nightmare that is.
Yeah.
And it had, basically the entire thing had to be torn down. Because of zoning, if I tore it down, I wouldn't have been able to keep it as a duplex. I would have had to convert it to a single family home. So I basically rebuilt this entire duplex, reframed every single, electrical, plumbing, HV, everything brand new. While I was doing that, I was halfway through the project and I ran out of money and I couldn't pay my contractor. And I was doing things not to code because I didn't have enough money to do it. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say I was doing things not to code. I was doing things to code, but I had not pulled permits because I couldn't afford to pay the engineer to go pull the permits.
Okay.
That week, I got fired from my job. A day later, my contractor quit because I hadn't paid him and I owed him like 25 grand. And so when you talk about debt, I then started calling all these companies, realtors, hey, I got to get out of this house. I can't afford this thing's half built. The next day I get red tagged by the city of St. Pete, which a red tag is essentially you getting fined until you fix your code violations. I didn't have enough money to pay the contractor to fix them, and I was getting charged $150 a day. I talked to all these cash companies, talked to these realtors. I was at least minimum 60 to 100K underwater on this project. Even cash companies couldn't help me. And so I was $60 to $100,000 in debt at this point. I didn't have a job. I had no way to make money. I had a half-built house that was red tagged, and I was getting fined $150 a day, which I had no way to pay.
Bro.
And so that's why I fucking got into wholesaling, because I was like, I have no other option but to make a shit ton of money really fast. And so I killed that next year wholesaling. But I worked, dude, I was calling Saturdays and Sundays, dude, I was working 100 hours a week. Like I literally would just sleep and eat, and I'd lift for 45 minutes and then I would wholesale. And the whole time I was lifting, I was still trying to make calls in between sets. Like I was only wholesaling. And so I understand the pain of a lot of these people, probably a lot better than people who get into this industry who haven't been really underwater in debt. Because like you said, it is a feeling like, dude, I was looking at bankruptcy. I was 23 years old. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go bankrupt at 23. Damn, like this happened quick. Like this wasn't how I planned it out. I thought I was going to get into real estate, be this, tycoon overnight. And next thing I know, I'm like researching bankruptcy, talking to a bankruptcy attorney, like, what do I do? But that's the kind of shit where you lock in. Like you have no other choice but to get these deals closed. And so yeah, that was kind of my experience with debt, and I did not like it.
It's crazy to think that you are essentially you went from motivated seller to a 7-figure wholesaler.
Yeah, crazy.
You literally.
Yeah, and now I know an 8-figure real estate portfolio as well, when I almost had to declare bankruptcy on my second project.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, so that project, and you were underwater. How do you paid it off?
Wholesaling.
Wholesaling.
So the way that story plays out, I had been trying to wholesale while I was working this job. Now, this was not a normal 9 to 5. I was probably working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It was like typical Wall Street-esque job. I had a great salary. I was making bank for a W-2 role at 22.
23 years old.
Yeah, for 22, 23 years old. I was living in New York. And so that was the only thing supporting this project, right? I was making plenty of money, and the project ended up getting too expensive. And so the way that next 6 months played out is I'd been trying to wholesale while working this job, which there was just not enough time in the day. Getting fired was actually the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life, because it finally pushed me over the edge, and it put me in a situation where my back was up against the wall. And here's the thing. If I went and got another job, I would have still had to declare bankruptcy because my level of debt was so much more than I could possibly pay off with the job.
Yeah.
And so I just spent literally every single waking hour talking to sellers. Like I was cold calling. I was sending 25,000 texts a week. This was before SMS and TTPA, whatever that law is. What started changing, right? SMS was way easier to run than it is now. And so, dude, I was just crushing texts.
Yeah.
And I, that first month, I got a bunch of deals under contract. I sold almost all of them. That first 12 months, I made $400,000 in profit.
Nice.
Paid off, got out of the debt of the house, finished the project, renovated. Still own the house today.
Dude.
I actually ended up living in that house. I house hacked it. Ended up living in that, made $400,000 in profit in my first 12 months. But here's the part of the story that I think people don't want to hear. I made $400,000, but I missed every single social event.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see my family much. I had absolutely no life. And I literally worked 80 to 100 hours a week for 12 months straight. And people say, oh, I could do that. Okay, so go do it. And you'll make a shit ton of money. And I think and I'm trying to make this, I want to put stuff out with my content about this. Like, I think people underestimate how much work goes into making above average income. And this doesn't have to be just for entrepreneurs. Like people in a W-2 role, right? Let's say you're a sales guy and you're working 40 hours a week. Let's say you make let's say you make 80 grand or 100 grand working, a sales job 40 hours a week. That person could literally double their income if they just worked twice as much time.
Yes.
And people can get very wealthy working W-2 jobs. Like I'm a big proponent. I don't believe everyone should be entrepreneurs, but I do believe if you're going to do anything, why not absolutely crush it, right? Like why, if you're gonna work a sales job, why not be the best salesperson for that company? Because here's what happens. If you let's use that example. You're making 100 grand a year and you go to your boss for a raise and you're working 40 hours a week. That boss is so much less inclined to give you a raise because there's other people who would like that job who could work way harder. But let's say you do the next year and you're like, you know what, I'm going to crush this next year. And let's say you just work even 60 hours a week. And a lot of times you can double your income with not double your hours, right? You can go from 100K a year to 200K a year working 60 hours instead of 40 hours. Because what happens is as you work more, your skills also start to compound and you just grow faster. But then you go to your boss the next year. Hey, I busted my ass last year. I made bank. I made 200 grand for you. You know, I made 200 grand myself. I made the company a bunch of money. You're in such a better position to then ask your boss for a big raise because you've become so much more valuable to the company, right? And I think there's a huge level of entitlement with everyone, entrepreneurs, W-2 workers, where they're like, I want to make more money, but I don't want to work more than 40 hours a week. You don't want to know what I have to say to that? Shut the fuck up. Like if you want to make more money and not work harder, dude, like just don't listen to my content. Like I'm not the guy for you. And then connecting back to entrepreneurship is like people think they're going to get into a business. They're going to work 40 hours a week. And a year later, they're going to be making 100 grand a month.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind. It's not how it works.
That's right. Hey, make sure you clip it so we can send it to everyone in our team so they really know exactly what to do. All right. And anyone's team, like if you guys watching it on YouTube, make sure that you send this part to your team members, your closers.
And here's the thing with this part is like, a lot of social media content makes it seem like the only way to get rich is to become an entrepreneur. You will live a far more enjoyable life if you actually become influential to a small business. If you're a salesperson, it could be in any role. Become important to a growing business. You will make way more money than all of your peers. You'll have infinitely less stress than the entrepreneur. You take way less risk and you still have a far more social life. And so not everyone should be entrepreneurs, but get really good at your role. And then you can make way more money than anyone else in that industry or that role because you're influential to the business.
Bro, I tell this to my closers all the time because sometimes you hire people that are culturally fit. They have these skills, but they've gone through things that they're essentially their dragon, their fire, their lion hasn't come out fully yet. So sometimes I had to talk with them go into deep talks. Especially sales is such an emotional role, right? Like one day you are making bank and then the other day you broke up with your girlfriend and then there's, you're not closing deals anymore because emotionally it gets you. So for example, with closers, you give a really great example. If you, for example, open up on Saturday and you work in Saturday, close deals on Saturday, you are going to close 14 to 16% more that month.
So I want to talk about this concept because it's really important. You can get so far ahead of anyone in your peer group by working just 2 or 3 hours every Saturday and Sunday. And here's what I'll tell you. And I have in my world, I feel like I have mastered my schedule, right? Like because I never feel burned out. And I'm still able to work 50, 60 hours a week. And I figured out a way where I can still have a social life. I can still do certain things. So just envision this on a Saturday. And here's the key. If you go out and drink and stay up late and get all messed up on Friday nights, good luck trying to get ahead.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. This is coming from someone who's like played with how I want to, do I want to drink in life? Because I do enjoy sitting on the beach and drinking tequila and rum, but I, don't enjoy the effects of being hungover and shit like that.
Yeah.
If you live this Saturday, you will level up so fast. So you work your normal week, work 1 extra hour during the week. So every single day you work 1 extra hour, right? If you go till 6, work till 7, right? If you start at 9, start at 8, right? 1 extra hour, that picks you up 5 extra hours a week. Now you're at 45 hours a week. Every Saturday, wake up. You can't go out the night before. This is the key. Go to dinner, but get to bed at a reasonable time. Wake up at the same time you wake up on the weekday, 6:30 a.m. I prefer earlier, but this is for, people trying to get started with this. Go get your workout in, go hit the gym, do whatever you do, be at your desk by 9 o'clock. Work at your desk from 9 until 12:30 every single Saturday and Sunday. Because here's the thing, people don't realize this. no one does anything from 9 till 12:30 anyways on the weekends. Have you ever hung out with someone before noon on a weekend?
Nope.
Have you ever seen your family before noon on the weekends?
Only if I'm staying at their home.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
But even then, everyone sits around, drinks
Yeah,
coffee, and watches TV.
Exactly.
So if you do that Saturday and Sunday, you pick up an extra 6 hours. That's a 51-hour work week. And here's the thing with that. Go hang out with everyone Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
If you want to go drink Saturday afternoon, but still get to bed at a reasonable hour so you can be at your desk 9 on a Sunday. And this goes for entrepreneurs and W-2, anyone. If you start doing that,
Employees, yeah.
you will level up so fast. And people will be like, well, I'm salary. How am I supposed to do that? I'm telling you right now, for anyone listening to this, if you're salary and you start putting in extra work on the weekends and you do that for 6 months and then go to your boss and ask for a big raise, you will get it every time because you are then providing more value to the business and the entrepreneur is going to want to keep you there, right? And here's the thing. If your boss doesn't give it to you, follow Joe Potenza 4. Call me. If you're willing to put in extra hours, I will hire you, right? Because if someone's willing to be dedicated to something, they're going to be better. And what happens with this, I know I'm ranting on this, but it's an important thing. What happens with your skills, take someone, sales is the best example of this. Take an entry-level salesperson. 2 people are hired at the same time. One person over the next year is going to work 40 hours a week. The other person is going to work, we'll call it 80 hours a week for a perfect math example. What happens is they not only made way more money, but they're also a full year ahead in their skills and learning. You're compressing your learning time because instead that person who works 40 hours a week worked 2,000 hours that year. The person who worked 80 worked 4,000 hours. And so they haven't just made more money, their skills are that much more ahead.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, it reminds me because we have 2 companies, right? And one is run by my partner and one is run by me. But in this second company that I built, which is Remote Latinos, we're essentially building a technology-based, tech-enabled platform. So it's a platform where you can go there and find your next virtual assistant from Latin America or remote employee, high-skilled worker, high-skilled employee. You can find it in a marketplace. Mm-hmm. But in order to build this, like, first of all, I did not know anything about technology. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any skills in terms of the tech side. Like, if you go to Miami here, all the meetups here, there's a lot of tech entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. I was like, holy shit, I feel dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I did know business and I did know sales and I did know marketing, which is a lot of tech entrepreneurs lack.
Yeah.
I just didn't know product and software and all this complex stuff. But I put in every single week and extra hours on Saturday and also at night. And you know who else was with me? Our first founding team member. And she is from Venezuela. She recently had graduated. Actually, hadn't graduated. She was doing her master's, the last thing, the project. And she put in every single hour that we were doing extra on Saturdays. And right now she became a leader. Like, she became one of the top people that if she wasn't there, the product wouldn't exist, to be honest. But so much that I was like, look, the reason why Elon Musk, the reason why Mark Zuckerberg, that's the reason why Jeff Bezos grow so big, so fast, and all these technology companies is because they don't own like 100% of their company. Mm-hmm. They literally own less than 20-30% of the company. And the rest goes distributed to their team, to investors, to stock options, whatever. And I decided this person has been working every single Saturday with us, every day extra with us. And we told her, like, if you do this, like, there's going to be 100% rewards, but we didn't know how to structure it. Yeah. And then you go and see technology companies giving 1-2% to their founding team members because they become partners, business partners. Now she has earned a point in the company. She earned a percentage of the company.
I think the premise of what you're saying is, like, people often want to figure everything out and figure out what their the reward is, what the benefit is, what the gain is before they do it. Mm-hmm. But really, if you start putting in the work, things will work out for you. The owners will see that, your boss will see that, you'll be bonused, whatever it may be. Like, that work does pay off, right? And I think the big difference in mindset of, like, W-2 high earners and entrepreneurs is they simply take initiative and then they solve for their, compensation later, right? You see people be like, well, I want to raise. And then I'll be like, well, would you be willing to work more? And they'd be like, yes. I'm like, well, what have you shown me to tell me that? Right. And so I think the big difference, and this is for both W2 and entrepreneurs, is like the people who do well in life, in the gym, in business, family, friends, relationships, are those that simply get started and figure everything else out along the way. Right. If you have to wait for the environment and the conditions to be perfect, you're never going to get started.
Yeah, 100%. I like your content because like it also not only teaches but inspires. You started doing the whiteboard now.
You like those?
Yeah, I like those. You also like kind of broke down how reverse engineering, how you should essentially think about your numbers and how you're gonna make your first $100,000.
Yeah.
I think, or first million.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so. I think people underestimate how predictable your income, your business, your net worth is, right? Like you can model out, like I know exactly what I'm going to be worth, assuming let's say my businesses don't grow. I can predict what I'm going to be worth in 40 years, right? Assuming nominal growth rates, I can predict what I'm going to be worth if my business continues hitting X growth rate, right? Like all of this stuff is very predictable. This goes for business and sales and everything. And so for specifically entrepreneurs, you can back into your numbers very easily. And so the way you solve problems in business is you take historical data, you say, what are we making? What are the problems? What is our churn rate? What is our cancellation rate? And then figure out simply how many leads you need to get in the door to backfill for $1 million, right? And I don't think anyone ever just thinks about these numbers, right? Like I know exactly how many leads I need to get to double my business this year, right? And then what I do is I say, okay, well, how many leads can an acquisition manager handle? Okay, well, I now know how many people I need to hire. This goes for sales. Determine what you want to make, determine your average commission, and then determine how many calls on average you have to make to get that commission. And then you can figure out how many calls you need to make every day.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into real quick to your story. I know we have, I don't know, how long do we have?
Yeah.
Like a few minutes?
Yeah, we can finish up.
So
My leg's tight.
you're a big man.
I don't know.
All right. So you it seems like when you were early in your life, you had a lot of challenges. And those challenges came from, I guess, natural inabilities, call it like that, of doing things like other people, or you had to like struggle more to get to where you wanted to be. So tell us a little bit more, like you
Yeah, so I'm pretty open about this with my content, and I want to be clear. I am someone who never has a victim mindset. Everything God has, given me in my life, good and bad, is for a reason, and those things, make you who you are today. And so I did have an interesting, schooling experience. I was dyslexic, ADD, all the normal BS they tell you got when you're like, a nuts little kid. But I really struggled to read, and that was the big thing because I was dyslexic. So I couldn't read till the 7th grade. And so spent all of elementary school in special ed. And so I'd be in the classroom half the day and then in special ed the other half of the day. Now, why I say some of those things are benefits is, one, I think my ability to communicate and talk with people quickly developed at a young age because I had to figure out how to get everyone to essentially like me, right? I had to get the teacher in my normal class to make sure they liked me because I couldn't read the thing on the paper. And so if I needed enough time to like understand what was going on, they had to like me, right? Then I had to make friends with all the kids who didn't have learning disabilities. Then I'd also spend half the day with kids who were, had autism and Down syndrome. And I became friends with everyone. And so I think, one, that was a huge blessing inside of itself. But I think anyone who experiences any kind of, situations where people tell you can't do things, oh, you can't go to college, you can't do this, you can't, it creates a chip on your shoulder, right? And so I never realized, but looking back on it, I've now started to realize as I've started to make like really good money for someone our age, and I've, bought a bunch of real estate and put myself in a position where like I could essentially, if I wanted to live a, normal, traditional life with nominal expenses, like I could basically retire, right, at 28 years old. Yeah. And I realized a big reason why I just continue to play the game and I have no intentions of ever stopping is because a little bit of that chip and just to see how far I can go, right? To prove people wrong. And it sounds cliche, and some people may say it's dorky, but I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and growing the businesses, growing the income, growing the portfolio, and we'll just see how far we can go. And I think those experiences put a little bit of a, chip on your shoulder.
Nice. Well, it's good to hear, man. Good to meet you, actually. I always I always like having really great people in my network, and sometimes it's hard to find people that not only are at a level that you want to be or in a similar level to you or like further ahead, but also that can connect in a deeper, like culturally or values wise and stuff like that. So you should come to Miami more often, brother.
Yeah, I think I will.
And I should probably go to Tampa, St. Pete. I also have a really good friend there. His name is Nicholas Nick. Have you ever heard of him?
I feel like I heard the name. I don't know.
Yeah, he owns a company called Lead Mining.
Okay.
Lead Mining. He has like kind of like an e-commerce store that is for cold calling.
Interesting.
So you go there to the website, you choose your products,
Interesting.
you add it to the cart, to the basket, and then you press purchase, and then you start getting cold calls.
There's so many ways to make money out here.
It's crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Anyways, so what's the big vision that you have?
Right now I'm, kind of head down. You want to continue scaling the wholesale business. A lot of people say it's a hard business to scale, which kind of makes me more excited about it. And going to continue scaling that, continue growing the real estate portfolio. And we'll see if, the vision will change and adapt in the next few years as, the income grows and the portfolio grows. But that's what I'm doing the next few years. I'm going to, keep posting a lot of free stuff on social. Want to try and, get rid of some of these fake gurus in the space. And, that's about it. So
there's a few real estate investing, wholesaling, flipping businesses that are over 10 mil a year.
Yeah. Very few.
Very few. But they have different business models.
Yeah.
And they had to kind of change the perspective on how they ultimately see wholesaling or do a little bit more of different things. What would you say is what's going to take you to 10 mil?
We're going to do it with novations and assignment deals. People have adjusted their model. I think we're kind of onto something with what we're doing, and we're going to get there, whether that be in the next 18 months, 24 months, but we're going to keep, leaning on it. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand with certain businesses. If you run a business with decent margins, 20, 30, 40, we run our business with 40, 50% margins sometimes.
Nice.
Like last year we did 40% margins on a lot of revenue. So we're making a ton of money every year. And this kind of business doesn't require tons of reinvestment in cash. So here's the thing. If it takes me a few years to get there, but I'm making a ton of money as I get there, I'm building a big real estate portfolio. If it takes a couple of years, it takes a couple of years.
Yeah. I love that. Have you heard of Sell to Bobby here in Miami?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Apparently he's doing like 10 mil.
Love it. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, on revenue at least.
Very cool.
I don't know the profit, but it'll be a good guy to see what his.
I'll have to find him, hit him
up.
Yeah. Cool, bro.
But anyways, man, thank you for being here.
You. I appreciate you.
Thank you for being in the podcast. If you guys like this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, leave us a review in Spotify or iTunes. It only takes about 60 seconds. If you feel you got value out of this, share this with your peers, share this with your friends, anyone that needs to hear this, Facebook groups, whatever, because I believe that this one is going to change your life. And I believe following people like Joe Dispenza, it's going to be...
Oh, where to follow me? Joe Potenza 4. Potenza. You're almost there, buddy. Joe Potenza 4, JoePotenza 4 on Instagram.
You know who Joe Dispenza is?
No.
He's like a guru.
Screw him. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I have no idea who you are, Joe. I'm just kidding. But your name's too similar to mine.
Yeah, he's like a doctor or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm sure he's a wonderful Italian.
I messed up.
Yeah.
All right, so follow Joe Potenza. Follow him right now in social media. He's trying to grow his social media, so show him some love, some support. This podcast is going to be posted in a specific Facebook group called Entrepreneurs, so you can actually see it first. But if anything, again, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and I hope you like this episode. Okay.
Thank you.